Pam Barosh, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. I'm really warm. It's absolutely boiling today for some reason. Where are you in the world exactly?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Okay, so not as warm as it is where you are, no doubt. Thanks very much for coming on. You have a
Yeah.
very interesting background, and I look forward to getting into it with you. How about you sort of introduce yourself? What's Pam all about?
Well, let's see. I'm all about spiritual, anything, to do with mindfulness, meditation. I really get into chakra energy a lot. I talk a lot about the colors of your chakras. I also connect with angels and spirits, so I'm a medium. So a lot of times I'll bring in those messages and things that they're telling me that people need to hear to kind of connect to their own spiritual connection, but also like listening to their higher selves, which is a good guidance point in this life when we're like lost a little bit at times, overwhelmed, stressed, and just like kind of let things go and get into that space where you're like being your true self.
Mm. Cool. Okay. So I'm really into meditation myself, and a bunch of my friends recently got into it with me, and it dramatically improved our lives. It allowed us to slow down. It provided a
Mhm.
lot more clarity and patience in situations. And it sounds like a lot of people kind of it allows them to take that step even further in terms of intuition
Mhm.
and having super clarity on any given situation. How does the energy work come into that? What is energy work? Because you say you're an energy coach. What does that
Right.
involve, and how does that differ from meditation and all of the other the normal common
Right.
practices?
Well, I guess the way I see it is everything is energy, including us and our thoughts and emotions and, our environment, literally everything. So when we're going into meditations and we're trying to get into that kind of state where we're releasing more and like letting our mind drift away and get more into our spirit, I do it from more of a perspective of being in touch with that energy and what that is. What do I feel? What are some of the images that come to me or thoughts or colors? I don't try to blank it out. Like a lot of times meditation wants you to be silent. I let things come to me. What is something that's inspiring me? Do I get like an idea for something? Sometimes it's more quiet, but I'll let it come in as it needs to. Or do I feel like there's a healing point? Because you could be doing like a chakra meditation and then you're going through the chakras and then you get to one of them and you're like, ooh, that reminds me of something. That's like a trigger for something that happened in my life. And this is all of this is about energy. All these things that happen to us, they create different ways that we hold on to things energetically,
Hmm.
or maybe we get stuck in a certain vibration. We're talking about energy vibrations is what it is. Everything is a frequency of sound and light and color. And so that's why we get stuck, is it's stuck in that certain frequency that we've either held on to because it caused us something that scared us or, made us kind of get a little too traumatized. But sometimes we just do it because it's like habit. Like you just keep doing the same thing and it may not even be good for you anymore. But we go through phases of our life like that. We're moving from, okay, I've done this for a while. Now I'm going to try this other thing. So I think for me, meditation is it's more than just getting out of your mind. It's being aware of your spirit,
Hmm.
that energy frequency.
Okay. So essentially, um, we are just a vibrational frequency, which,
Hmm.
luckily modern science has now got to the point where it's measurable. I follow an awful lot of work of Dr.
Hmm.
Joe Dispenza. I've read all of his
Hmm.
books, and it's become very demonstrable that where you put your thought is where you put your energy. I mean, quantum physics has been sort of proving
Right.
that time and time again over the last couple of decades. How can a practice like this of just simple mindfulness practice and meditation be adopted in the Western world a little bit more pragmatically? Because an awful lot of what I see at the moment
Hmm.
is a lot of people very skeptical over the practice, and more importantly, very already have some strongly held beliefs that it's just spiritual woo woo and rubbish, essentially. Now, as with every movement or every technique of all facets of health and well-being, there are charlatans, there are people that make stuff look really ridiculous.
Hmm.
How can there be a better adoption of these mindful techniques to actually ease this in and make it a normal practice for those who maybe just don't fancy or think it's going to help?
Right. I think the important thing is, if you're going to make it practical, how do you include it into your life? So some of the simple things are, let's say you're doing your work for the day, your daily tasks, right? So
Hmm.
how do you include that concept of mindfulness and meditation within that? So I think it's really simple. I don't think it has to be complicated. I don't think you need to do a long meditation or take a certain time away and feel like you have to fit it in somewhere. I think it's a part of your everyday life, everything you do. So as an example, you could be doing different tasks. You're sitting at your desk and then you basically take a few minutes to breathe. Now, how often do we really take time to get into our breath? We don't have to accomplish anything within that. We don't have to necessarily say, I have to see a connection. I have to see an image. I have to have a certain vibration at that moment. All I'm doing is I'm releasing into my breath. And what that does is it slows our nervous systems down enough to where then we can be at a better vibration overall throughout our whole day, right? We
Mm.
don't want to consistently be stressed out and revved up. So that's one part of it, is just taking the breath and
Mm.
being able to just little bits at a time, not really aiming to, I have to do it at this time every day for so many minutes, just doing it consciously, being aware of, okay, am I doing things too hard for myself right now? Am I pushing myself too much? Does this feel right to me? Like sometimes people do things in their lives that don't even feel right. And that's a vibration. It's saying, hey, this doesn't match.
Mm.
This isn't where I should be. So we need to be more aware of that. But in addition to that, other than the awareness and the breath, I think another thing that people can do that's really simple energetically is, as you're going about your day, your week, think about what can you put energetically into things. So your intentions, your thoughts, but it's not even just being a big intention like for, okay, I want this for the rest of my life, this goal. It's what can I do in this very moment? So if you are just doing a simple thing like sending emails, like talking to somebody on the phone, how can you take that moment and say, okay, I want the highest good for this right now, or before I start it? Like if I'm about to go do something, but right before I do it, maybe I put that intention out there, bring in the highest good for this experience. And I think we get so rushed that we're not even
Mm.
taking the time. It's kind of like a prayer in a way. People pray over their food, or they have different times that they pray or meditate. But what if you could do it all of the time? What if you created energy within everything you did, literally? So that would mean that you're taking your meditations into this existence where you're not going to meditate, you are the meditation.
Wow. I guess it's just being in the present moment as consistent as possible, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
if I think back to how I was before I got into meditation, I was very sort of living by the seat of my pants, as it were. I'd just be jumping into one thing and then another thing, and then my
Mhm.
mind would be elsewhere. My mind would normally be on predicting the results of whatever I was doing, instead of actually focusing on what I was doing. So I was actually probably just putting my energy somewhere else, not actually in the present moment on the task in
Right.
hand. And I kind of feel like that's where the performance enhancing aspect comes in from mindfulness, because it allows you to slow down and really put your thought and focus on exactly what you're doing at that given moment. And I think it's
Mhm.
right what you say about, before you jump into something and before you're about to start a process or a task, whether it's making something or working or reading or learning or whatever it is, just taking that time at the beginning to grab a couple of minutes of mindfulness and then just put your
Mhm.
focus on whatever it is that you're going to be doing. How did that change your life? Because you haven't always been like this, have you? There was.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't. I used to be more in the analytical world. I mean, everything I did, I was more of a scientist mind, I guess you could say. I pursued things that were in that realm. I studied medical science a lot. I did a lot of things that were more research based. And then for me, I think there was always that part of me, it's kind of like the left brain versus the right brain sometimes, with the creativity versus the
Mm.
analytical. I think for me, I always had that part of me that wanted to come out and be more in my spirit self and more in my heart. But it's like I was trying to follow, I think, what the world presented to me. Like, here's what you're supposed to do. You know, this is what's expected of you. You need to check this box and accomplish this by this date. And everything was, I found myself, I would go to school and take classes, and I was working on different degrees, and I was always doing my life by a schedule like that. Like, what's this semester going to be? I have to do this, this, and this. Well, really, in that moment of doing that, I wasn't really doing the things I wanted to do. I wasn't taking enough time to just hang back and relax and observe life at times and just let it be for what it was. I was always trying to accomplish the next thing that was due. So then when I took a break from, I had finished my master's degree, and around the same time I had gotten sick. And during that time, it caused me to meditate a lot to heal. So I was pushed into it in a way. Like, I really wasn't going to listen. I was very stubborn. But once I was pushed into it, I had no choice, because if you're in that state of, you're like, you have nothing else. There's nothing to hold on to. Your identity has been wiped away, and all you are is this vessel, and you're trying to figure out, well, who am I now? You know, if I'm sick and I can't do that, like, I was no longer the student. I was no longer the mom. I couldn't be all those things I was before. So then, you know, that took me to a place of, well, let me see what else is there. And I started to communicate to spirits, and that's what led me to realize I can heal, and I can be more open to these things and not be like a sideline that I do a little bit in my life, but be my whole life. I think before, because I was exposed to different religious beliefs, I kind of got confused and felt like, well, if I didn't agree with that, then that means I can't believe this. And it was like, I felt like I didn't fit anywhere. But honestly, when I finally realized that it's all together, and it's just me putting together what my beliefs are and what feels right to me, what resonates with me, then that's where I was able to step into this world finally and be okay and not feel like it was uncomfortable or weird. Because I could take it and say, well, I believe in angels, but I also believe this other thing over here. So it was okay. I didn't have to label it as one thing, and just go with what I felt was right for me. And I think that's important for everybody, whatever your beliefs are. And that may change over time. You know, you could start one path and start going in a little bit of different direction because you get exposed to another, you know, person that's a guru or expert or some, you know, different practice or whatever. Just keep going with what you feel drawn to. The more you worry about what other people think about it, the more you're not yourself. And if you're not yourself, then nobody gets to see that. They don't get to experience the true power within you to be you and show others something that is in your perspective that's important.
It's interesting what you said about, you felt like the world was telling you and convincing you how to live instead of living by who you believe that you are, you know, your inner self. And it's almost like, you know, we're living in a program essentially, you know, and that program is provided for us, and we don't actually get too much of a say in it because it's a societal influence from when we're very young. So that's just the existence we're handed. And in your case, you broke out of that through trauma, and that was your route in to kind of, I don't know, an awakening, I guess we could call it that. And how do people need to really experience such difficult, tough times in order to make this step? And if not, how can it be done? Is it just getting into meditation and spending time separating yourself from your ego and your experience and finding your inner self? What can be done for those who, you know, aren't experiencing any life-shattering events?
Yeah, I don't think you have to go into the thing that I did. Obviously, I would not suggest that. I think that's for the people that are stubborn in the world and take a little longer to shift. Sometimes you will get a bigger shift. That does happen. Sometimes what you'll see is a person will have everything in their life start to fall apart, every category. And that's when they're having a big shift that's happening, like literally overnight. Now, not everybody does that. Most people are more gentle in their shifting, and they'll gradually get into it. They don't even realize what's happening, honestly. What will happen is they'll be exposed to something. Somebody will talk to them about it, or they'll run across something on the internet or whatever. And basically they start to get little nuggets of it. And when they do that, they are starting to awaken in their own way. So that's, you know, good. I think that's the better way to go, is, you know, to do it in a gradual way, so people get used to the process of what they're going into. Everybody has their own way to do that, their own timing. And it shouldn't be any different than what is going to work for them. Because if that other person next to them, and you will see this sometimes, like their friends not at the same level they are, they're like all over the place with where they're going, and sometimes you drift apart. If they're not in the same alignment, that's okay, because everybody here in this life is in their own pathway. And so I think for people to get into this shifting more, if they really are interested in opening up and finding out who they are, like what is their path, all these things, I think the main thing is to focus on joy. What brings you joy? So this is something to really get into more, like even with your hobbies and things that you choose to do, like, does that even bring me joy anymore? You know, does going to that place bring me joy? Does hanging out with that person bring me joy? Whatever it is, you know, sometimes we get stuck into stuff that we do it just because, and then we don't realize we've been kind of putting to the back burner all the things that really we want to try. So maybe make a list of things. Hey, here's all the things that I've always wanted to do that are kind of out there. They're off the wall, strange maybe, and I want to do them, but I'm just kind of holding myself back because I'm waiting for the right time. Well, maybe the right time is just starting to do that. So I always tell my clients, like, if you're thinking about doing something and you're overwhelmed by the thought of it, because sometimes that happens when you know you have a true calling that's different. I would say just start with one little thing. Take one little step. What is the first thing that you can do to begin to do that? So if you want to experience more meditations, what is the first thing you can do to do that? Can you say, okay, this is the time in the day that I'm going to take for myself, just to take care of myself? If you want to follow a different pathway for your career, you know, what is the first thing? Which thing am I interested in right now? Let me start to do that. I think people are scared that if they make one decision, it's going to be the wrong decision because they started to go in that direction. But see, going on the journey is how you find out. If you're not doing that, if you're just looking at all the options, you can't figure it out because you're just looking at it, not experiencing it.
Yeah.
And when you feel it within the actual experience, that's when you know.
I guess it goes back to living in the present moment of the process of trying to get whatever it is you want to do. And again, you know, let's say somebody wants to change their career and they want to become a musician. You know, they have an office job, they want to become a musician. They spend all of their time thinking about, fuck, what if I fail? Or what if I'm not very good? And just focused all of their thought on the process and learning and all the small wins and all the small goals and all the small steps that go along with that. It will probably be more of a rewarding experience, more of a loving, grateful, character building process. And that was exactly where I was before I got into meditation. I was consistently, without fail, worrying about results, worrying about failure all the time, constantly, and just not enjoying the process. And I have a very good friend of mine, and he is trying to make music, like trying to make tracks. And I could see it stresses him out. It stresses him out a lot, but it's all he tries to do. You know, he's not really found his passion properly yet. And he can't bring himself to try a bunch of new stuff because he doesn't feel like he will enjoy them, or not sure he'll enjoy them, and not sure if it will raise his vibration. So he just sticks with doing the same thing over and over again. And I feel if more people just took a leap of faith and just consistently tried new fun activities that might go towards raising their vibration and providing more of an emotional uplift in their lives, I think everybody would be 1,000 times happier. I've always said there's a global fun crisis happening at the moment where not enough people are going out there and having serious fun because they don't know what that is. They don't know what it looks like. They're not sure what they need to be doing in order to, you know, bring that basic emotion out in their lives. I've been doing a lot of research into this stuff, and I was a skeptic before meditation, all this chakra stuff. I thought it was crap until I had my what I guess was a Kundalini experience. Absolutely blew my mind, and I'm in. I'm a believer. One thing I'm very interested though in finding more about is um, this topic gets interesting and difficult for a lot of people to understand. The second somebody says that they communicate with angels or they communicate with other beings, and I'm very interested in exploring what that looks like and how that began for you, if you don't mind discussing that. So, when was the first time that you had that sort of experience of feeling like you were communicating with something other than yourself? And how did you feel? And how did that come about?
Well, that first happened when I was ill at the time. I was in a really serious illness where I was not able to function, and I was kind of bedridden. So because of my physical body being not available, if you will,
Mm,
I kind of went more into the spiritual connection and like letting go. And I was trying to figure out what to do. Nobody could really help me. And I was trying to heal in some way, but I was so sick, I didn't know what to do.
mm,
And so at one point, I think I was in this state, it's kind of like an in-between state between, you know, maybe being asleep and awake, and it's almost meditative, but a little different. It's more connected to the spiritual side, like you're almost crossing over in a sense.
mm-hmm.
I got to that stage where I was kind of almost going over there. And that's when I remember I was so like in that moment reaching out to something. Like I didn't know what to do, that I literally said, help me. And then what happened after that is I saw, and I've never seen this before this point, okay? So I saw these lights come out in me that were angels that were walking towards me in my visions. And then it's like everything just kept going from there. So it began me seeing them, and then I was hearing them. And then I started to hear, like, the angels were the first, you know, beings that I heard. And then it was spirits and spirit guides coming in. I would hear them. The hearing was the big thing.
Mm,
Eventually it did change to where I would see images and visions of things that they were showing me. And a lot of times they were coming to tell me, like, how can I heal? What do they want me to do today? You know, how do I use what I call love energy, but just it's basically light energy, but it's pure love coming through. How do
mm,
I heal with that? And so I would just keep doing the things that they were guiding me to do. And then eventually that led to me writing. So I would write a lot of the stuff that they would give me, and I would start to just, it's almost like channeling the writing. It would just come straight through. So that is how it began. But technically, I think I always had that ability. It was just I wasn't tapping into it as much. I would
mm,
have spirits come to me in dreams, and I would get feelings or knowings about things, you know,
mm.
like you just know you need to tell somebody something.
Yeah, it's like a download of information, basically.
Yeah, I did
Mm,
that when I was a kid a lot. I would always tell my friends and relatives things that just came to me, but I don't think I really focused on it. I don't think I saw it as something that I would use all the time. I definitely didn't think it was going to be my life path at all.
mm,
I had no idea what was coming next. So now that with this creation of this opening in the recent few years, this allowed me to see that I could do so much more with it, that I do have a stronger ability. And I think everybody can use it more depending on how you want to bring it into your life. Not everybody's going to go out and be a medium, but just what do you want to do with it? I think it's possible. It's just a matter of trusting. And I find a lot of times people will be scared of it at first. Like,
mm,
oh, that's too weird. What if I bring in something that shouldn't come through? Or, you know, I don't know. I don't think I can do that. I don't think I have that ability. I don't trust myself. I don't know if I can. So I just always tell people to really let go into it, you know, slowly let go into it and begin to bring little nuggets of that coming through, because it is possible. But if you believe it's not going to happen.
mm,
So it just depends on if you're ready to shift it or not. And
mm,
if you say to yourself, I hear spirits, then you're going to be able to hear spirits. But if you say you can't, then you're not going to be able to.
mm,
So they're going to work with you however you are coming to them. They work with your abilities and what you're open to. So as you open up, you get more. And that's what happened to me. Like at first it was just, I'm hearing them. And then it was like, okay, now I'm seeing more images, and now I'm feeling more energy that I didn't feel before. And then I began to, it was interesting at the beginning, I told myself I didn't think I would ever be able to see colors or, you know, tap into chakras as much as some people did. But then I realized after I did a few meditations and really looked into it more, I was already doing it, but I just didn't realize what I was doing. I thought that the information I was getting was just random. I had no idea what it was. So then if you learn it more, like when you fine tune it, like you could take a class on it, you can just do meditations and practice that way. But eventually when you fine tune it enough, it's just like anything else. If you're learning a new craft, you know, if you do it enough times, it becomes easier for you to trust it and for it to build on itself and grow more. And like you gave that example of, you know, people not wanting to, like they get scared of putting in the work and effort for something that they're not sure of, and they kind of hang back a little bit and they're like, what, they don't shift anything. And one of the things to remember is if you look at people that have really accomplished their craft, whatever that is, whether that's, okay, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm, you know, like a healer, I'm a musician, whatever it is, what is it that they do to get to that point? They never give up. They know who they are and they do their stuff every day, no matter if it goes wrong or not, even if they fail 100 times, because that doesn't mean anything. Your failures or your points of not being there yet where you think you should be are not really failures. They're growth. They're getting you to that place where you can be more in that place of kind of being your higher self more, being more of the guru of your own self, right? So it's just like being in the moment, like we talked about, always being grateful in the moment that you are bringing in what you need right then, and that being patient with the rest of it, the process of it, because you can't go and say, well, in 2 days, I'm going to be like a meditation expert. You know, like it takes time to grow into that. And because we are coming from a place of being more in our physical existence with materialism and ego and all these other things, we have to shed that. And if we can't give room to shed those things, we're not going to be able to move into the other thing, right? So, and I think a big thing also I've noticed is that when somebody is becoming something, it's like their true self, when they're actually stepping into their true self, right? Their full power, that scares people. It really does. Because see, when you think about it, when you really tap into that and you talk to your real self, you realize you're capable of a lot of stuff. And see, that's being real honest with yourself and saying, okay, self, what have you been doing? How come you haven't been doing this thing that's really you? That's your passion. That's what drives you every day. That feeds your heart every day, you know? And that's why people don't always get to the place where they could, because they are afraid of actually being themselves.
That's very true, because we're too busy being the version of ourselves that was given to us by our experience. And that's that really is very familiar for me to hear that. And I'm going through the process now of actually doing the things I'm passionate about, working on the things I find creatively rewarding, and actually allowing that to take up more of my life and giving these things a little bit more agency. And I feel like it's raising my vibration to the point now where I get to take that energy out into my relationships and my career and my friend groups and my family and stuff like that, where I don't know, I kind of live a far more relaxed life where it kind of feels like it has purpose. I don't feel like I'm being the version of me that I was taught to be as a child, you know. And so you had this, so you were sick, you were ill, and you had this experience, and you started realizing, actually I can tap into some different realm or dimension and communicate with these beings. How did your health start changing from that point on? Was it a slow, gradual process, or was it quite a fast process? How was that?
Well, it was actually a little bit longer than you would think. I mean, it took me about a year, I would say, to really do the full healing to where I could function completely again. And really, I was better than I was before, technically, at the end of it. I felt like I was more of myself than I'd never been for years and years and
Mm.
years. So I would say that one of the things people may not be aware of is that healing can take time. It's not always overnight. And miracles are not just an overnight healing either. Like sometimes there's a journey to that healing, right? Because if you've been through a lot of stuff, you know, you've got a lot of things to deal with emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever it is. I was very physically disconnected from my body. So the way I can say that would be for people if they felt that way is it's like you're kind of feeling like you have physical symptoms in your body that you don't understand, like you have pain or whatever it is, and you just keep going through and pushing yourself. So that's kind of being disconnected from your body in the sense that you're not letting it be in its own good vibration. You're just kind of pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. But if you listen to your body and get your spirit in alignment with your body, then you don't go to those states anymore.
Mm.
You know, you get into a calmer presence and you kind of align them together. Whenever you have a disease, that means there's something that is not energetically in the right vibration, or it's like somehow something's not speaking to each other, like your mental versus your physical, your spiritual. So for me, it was just taking a longer path, which I think was necessary to not only learn those connections to spirit, but for me, it was a lot about trusting and believing in myself. Like I think I had gone through a lot of that talk you have in your head where you tell yourself, oh, I can't do that, or I'm never going to be able to do that. And I'll give you an example of this. Is one of the things that I would do is I remember I had wanted to write a book for a long time, and I kept putting it off and putting it off. And in my mind, I thought, well, if I wrote a book, well, I can't write a book because that's what other people do, or that's what people do that are gurus, or, you know, you have to be a celebrity or whatever it is. And that's the way I was seeing it. And I thought, well, I'm not qualified. I'm not that person. I don't know how I would even do this. And so this experience made me awaken to, okay, what am I telling myself here? Like, what if I was an author that was a guru? I mean, I'm not saying I have to be, but what if I was? What if I just allowed myself to be whatever? See, in society, we keep grouping people according to classes and cultures and all these different things, and we put things into categories, right? So if we look at authors that are, you know, maybe they're more famous authors, for instance, we might look at them and go, well, I'll never be a famous author, or that's only for those people, right? But what is it that's different about them? We're all the same. We're all capable. We all can do this. There is no difference. We're all souls. When we get down to it, we're souls. We're connected. We're all connected energetically through love. So what is the difference? They actually put the actions in.
Yeah.
They went and did it, and they decided they were not afraid, and they had a message to put out there. So I decided, why not believe that? So that's what I would begin to do. I did a lot of affirmations and just changing the way that I was thinking, and just I started to visualize myself differently. So I literally saw myself healed, and even, you know, what I was wearing and just where I was, I saw myself on a stage speaking to people. I saw myself signing books. I would just visualize different things so that I could start to believe that more. It takes time for the mind to get out of the old thoughts and actually believe what is the new frequency that you're trying to become. You know, what do you want to really be? So for me, it was just a journey. It took longer because of that, because I was trying to reset all of those thoughts and things that I had done that were not helpful to me, that weren't the real me. And then when I learned more about that, what was interesting is I took everything I learned and I put that into my writing. So I do that a lot on my blog. And then I have a book that I'm going to put out next year that I'm going to put out there that has a lot of the stuff that I talk about with the energy and how you can shift these thoughts and different things that are blocking you and keeping you from being really the true self that you are, the pure love that you are.
You mentioned gratitude, which has been an absolute game changer for me. Now, whether or not, you know, the law of attraction is real or not, there is a ton of value in already feeling grateful for achieving the things that you want. Now, whether or not that actually attracts it to you, that's a whole other podcast. But something I'm finding useful, and some advice that I give to some friends, is that if you can be grateful for already receiving something. I've done this with the podcast. I've been thinking about doing this podcast for like 2 or 3 years now. And when I say thinking about it, I was just telling myself I couldn't, as you mentioned. Yeah. And when I got into meditation and I got into all of this good stuff, I started looking into gratitude, the law of attraction, and I had a lot of friends, very close friends, sort of kind of reiterating and going down the similar path. So we got to reaffirm to each other the information that we were getting. And so we started journaling, and we started tapping into the feeling of gratitude for having already achieved, or at least already having it been experiencing what it was. So, I'll be writing down, I want to start a podcast, and then I'll be like, oh, I have to feel gratitude for having already done it. So I'll do that every day. Boom, boom, like without fail, write it down, bang. I'd visualize in it after meditation. I'll do some visualization, and I'll be right here. This was exactly what I envisioned. And gradually over time, it became who I was, because, I spent a few years telling myself I couldn't. So I became the person that couldn't. I became the person that wouldn't. And then gradually over time, and it's a quick process, really, because gratitude is strong. I mean, love is a serious dominant frequency, as it's been tested. And I became the person where it just felt easy. It felt normal for me to go ahead and just do it and take the action, as you mentioned, because in my mind, I had already been the person doing these podcasts because I'd visualized it, and it was almost like I'd already been living it. So it became normal. So then I went and done it in the physical world, essentially. And so whether or not the law of attraction stuff is real, there is value in training yourself to already be the person that you want to be. The issue nowadays is the whole fake it till you make it attitude. It's kind of fucked that up for a lot of people. Because there needs to be a gentle line between bullshitting yourself and pragmatically visualizing something with gratitude for having already received it. What sort of methods do you use in terms of sort of practicing gratitude and allowing that to motivate you to change who you are, to actually take action? Because there is a huge intent problem going on at the moment where people have these ideas. I want to do this. There's so much want, right? I want to do this. I want to do that. What is the thing that can just fit in the middle that will just make people just go and get it?
Well, talking about gratitude, I mean, the main thing is whenever you're going about your day, just here and now, it's like looking at every little thing you're doing. And people don't often put gratitude towards themselves in the way that they say, thank you, self, for doing that. You did a great job. Like sometimes we are grateful for other things around us. Like we'll do our little gratitudes and say, I'm thankful for this person being in my life. And that's great. We do all those things. But how often are we grateful for ourselves and what we're doing every day? Like you did great today. You actually had a great day where you were meditating. Good job. Or I was doing, like, let's say you're doing something for your business, your career, whatever's going on with you. Like for me, I might be doing something where I'm creating a meditation to put on my website or writing a blog post or something like that. I could say, wow, I did great. That was amazing. Look at that. I can't believe that came out, what I wrote. And when I do that and I get into that feeling, it creates more of it. It helps me to feel more confident to do the next thing, or to bring in what is the vibration that matches with that, which could be something else. It may not be a blog post. It might be another thing. It might be a magazine article or an interview with somebody or something else, but it at least puts me in that feeling of it. So it's really just kind of looking at the things we do during the day and how can we kind of switch that around and remember to like be mindful of the beginning and the end of it. Like, what do we do at the beginning? We, maybe breathe, set the tone, right? And then at the end, we're like, we did great here. This was amazing. Good job. And even if you don't feel like you got everything, like the way I see it is be grateful for everything, right? So let's say I'm trying to do something and I don't know what I'm doing and it's new and I'm trying, but I don't feel like I'm there yet. And I'm kind of not skilled as much as I would want to be, right? So I could start to do like videos and feel like, oh, I can't do videos for some reason because I've never done videos before. Well, still be grateful for it, because if you're trying and you're putting it out there and you're trying to put it together, you're putting yourself in front of the camera, then be grateful for that part and say, okay, you did good. You tried, you put yourself out there. That's the first step, because otherwise you can't keep building on that gratitude and that intention to keep moving it to where you really want to be. And I don't like to use the word want necessarily, but still there is a point of where we're seeing ourselves in the future, our future self. So what we're trying to do is bring our future self to the present. We're trying to find a way to tap into what that is and be okay with where we are now, knowing that really our future is in the present.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, it's amazing information. And something that really interests me is the sort of the process of self-acceptance. There's an awful lot of people really that I know, and of course I've had many conversations with many people on the internet where a lot of people struggle to accept themselves. And they say, you're your own worst critic, normally because it's so easy to be self-critical, and we've been taught from a very young age that you can't be too sure about yourself. You can't. Overconfidence has become this very strange kind of concept, like it's an egoic thing, which ironically self-gratitude is the absolute opposite of that. And why do you think that's happened? Why do you think it's people are vilifying themselves for feeling good about themselves and trying to give themselves a bit of a pat on the back?
I don't know. I think we've just been taught to maybe sometimes not always say things. We're always trying to say things for other people and look outside of ourselves. And maybe we haven't been taught to, one of the things, maybe just going inside and seeing what's in there, So part of it just comes with healing within too. And if a person can't give themselves that self-acceptance, it's because there's something in there that hasn't healed. Because you're kind of avoiding it. It's like the elephant in the room. You're avoiding the elephant and you're trying to just go about other things. Like people will distract themselves. I'll go do that other thing. I'm going to take that new class, that new hobby, whatever it is, but I'm not going to deal with what pain I have inside of me. So until they deal with that part of whatever's in there, they're not going to be able to get to that place of acceptance and self-love to the extent that it could be, because it could be so much more. And I think one of the things also is, if people have anxiety about something, usually anxiety is just cluing you into that's something that you really need to go tackle. You're just kind of in that place of not sure, and you get this buildup of energy. The buildup of energy is because you're not doing anything. The anxiety is just that energy that's stuck, and it's causing you to feel awkward and weird. And you're feeling that way because you're not actually doing any actions. You're just in the thoughts of it. The thoughts are they keep running over and over and over again. And that's why there's that feeling of anxiety. But if you can release it by doing the stuff that you're really drawn to, or doing more physical activity like yoga or tai chi, and doing meditations, that releases that energy. And what happens in that release? When you finally move that energy, you can accept yourself more. You can see clearly what you're supposed to do. The clarity comes in. You can soften your energy more. Everything around you looks different. It's just a different vibration. It's like literally stepping into a different world. I mean, if we think about it, if we're into 2 or 3 or 4, or however many different vibrations, we could be all over the place. But let's say we're in a lower vibration that's more of a physical plane experience, and then we shift to the other one. It's literally like we go into another place completely. Like if you were to go on vacation and you went somewhere that you'd never seen before, and it was really magical and different, and it took you out of your normal element, it's like that. And then once you get into that dimension, that plane, that existence, that's a different vibration, once you do that, the cool thing is you're not going to want to go back to the other one. You may bounce around at times. You may be like sometimes having a bad day or whatever, but you're more aware of it. When it happens, it's like, ooh, that didn't feel good. Now I realize that's not what I want. And then you just keep trying to go on that other dimensional path, and people will come on your path that align with that more.
I
So
guess you could
that'll help
think,
you.
I guess you could look at anxiety like a piggy
Mm-hmm.
bank of energy, and you just need to go out and spend it. You need to
Mm-hmm.
create these spending habits of actually going out and doing something with it. And then you start
Right.
training yourself to, as a habit, to get that energy out there physically, with intent.
Right.
And I think that's no one's ever really put that to me like that before.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see much out there in the mainstream allowing people to do that. I mean, I see a lot of people being given pills and, various treatments for excess energy.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is? Because what
Mm-hmm.
confuses me a lot is how this isn't mainstream stuff. Me and my small group of friends, who got into meditation and mindfulness together, we are absolutely blown away by the lack of mainstream support for these practices.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like it's on purpose, like it's not by accident. And that there is an element of distrust that gets created from this when you go through this process, or at least for me. I can't speak for everybody, but
Mm-hmm.
I trust kind of the system and the medical community way less than I used to now. And I've seen some people overcome some crazy issues with this, and physical ones too. And why do you think that this isn't a mainstream thing? Why isn't there a proactive need to heal the world from the inside out?
I think part of it is we sometimes want a quick fix for things and some easy answers. So, the normal thing would be to go to the medical profession and get something for it or get an answer right away.
Mm,
But then they don't always look at that other part. There are physicians and other practitioners now that do more integrative or, holistic medicine. However, a lot of them don't. And so
mm,
the problem is there's a separation between the spiritual and this physical healing that's going on, and even the mental part as well. So they're all compartmentalized into different areas. And so somebody might have to go to, say, a psychiatrist, and then they go to their regular doctor, and then they also go to maybe another practitioner that's something else. And so you're trying to piece it all together when really it's all together to begin with. And if it was just looked at it that way and more accepted,
mm,
then people could get a different kind of healing, maybe even have it happen a little bit better and faster. But the way the world has worked, I think it has a lot to do with the industry. It's a money-making industry to go out there and, have all these different options. And so
mm,
maybe it's not in our best interest. The way I see it is, for me, the medical profession did not help me. I had to search for my own and find my own healing in my own way, different practitioners that I thought were more open. And I see it as they serve the purpose that they serve. So if they need to help somebody that has something that really needs to be treated medically, that's a surgery or something like that, then that serves that purpose. But I don't think it helps for all of the people that are going through these spiritual awakenings. They're just going to go there and get frustrated and not know what to do, and they don't get the support. A lot of times they don't get the emotional support.
mm.
It's like there's a disconnect, and people are just, so many people go in to get something. They're not going for a healing, they're going for a diagnosis.
Yeah, they're going for
So see,
a reaffirmation to confirm what they've
yeah,
been worried about, because of
they're
course,
looking for a disease, basically. They're looking for a
exactly.
disease, they're looking for a diagnosis, they're not looking for anything else. Now, the disease is not the disease. The disease is a dissonance, it's an energy frequency that's not in alignment.
Hmm.
So what they're looking for is an energy signature of a disease, but they call it a name. But if they looked at it and they measured the frequency of it, they would see it actually had a frequency. And then if they could change the frequency, they would be
Mm,
healed.
exactly.
So it's just a way of their perspective is limited by what they've been taught, what tradition
Mm,
is, the way the society runs and how we profit from these things.
mm.
So
Whereas
that's where
if
we're at.
people just practice some mindfulness techniques, created a level of brain and heart coherence, and just let their autonomous nervous system do what it's designed to do, let the subconscious do the hard work, shut off the monkey brain, and then your body can begin healing and do some amazing things, which are documented tens of thousands of times. But for some reason, the information is not out there, and we can dive into many conspiracies. Why not? However, the good news is once, people discover these practices, nothing can stop you from sitting quietly in your living room and shutting up for 10 minutes. And that's the beautiful thing about meditation and energy work, is that it can just be done in any situation at any given point, and it's a positive, proactive change that you can make. However, it's not always a super easy process. It's not always a smooth process. And you mentioned the term spiritual awakening, which I want to get your opinion on. I have been very fortunate in my process to have a gradual exposure to this other side of the world, essentially spiritualism. And I gradually read some books. I dipped my toe in, but I do know some people that went balls to the wall and just did everything. Maybe experimented too much in certain substances and psychedelics, and then just had a full blown kind of like fast tracked spiritual awakening. To you, how would you classify what the spiritual awakening is? Because there's an awful lot of scaremongering out there when you search that term. What is the spiritual awakening to you?
I think it's just being more aware of what is your true self and how you are more than the physical body. Like we go through the early parts of our lives where we're more focused on just, doing regular things and in our physical space. But it's being more aware of who you are beyond this world. Why did you come here? Where are you going next? What is it that you've come to do? What is your mission here? Like, what is your heart telling you is the right thing to do? What are your gifts? What gift are you bringing to the world? So it's just being more aware, I think. And it could be a slow awareness that grows. Like you might just say, hey, I'm interested in learning about this thing, or I want to go do a yoga class or something. And you just start to kind of look at it a little bit. It could be for different reasons. You might just be interested in it, or it could be that you're going through something hard in your life and you just say, hey, I need to do something different because I'm not feeling right. And then you just start to develop that kind of part of your life. So I think spiritual awakening is just realizing you have the choice to choose what you believe, and you have that process of looking at yourself, and you look at yourself and say, well, what do I really desire? What brings me joy? What is love? What is love within me? How do I, put that resonance, that light within me to attract those things that really match me? And so it's kind of a lot of different components, I think. And really it's the spiritual awakening, I think, also reflects your space and the people around you. And it does reflect your physical body. It's a lot of different things. It's not just your spirit, but your spirit is basically awakening to tell you that you are a bright light. And if you choose to make that light brighter and shine brighter, then you will begin to see all these big things happen that were maybe things you were always thinking about doing, things you wanted to explore. And it's like all of a sudden you give yourself permission to go do that. Let's say you always wanted to travel somewhere, and a place you always wanted to visit, and you just kind of kept putting it back and not really doing it and making excuses or whatever. But when you have that light within you, you will find a way to do it, because it'll bring it to your like awareness. And what I find happens to me a lot is if I get a thought come to me over and over and over again, like go do something, go do this thing, go do this thing, and I keep having it happen to me, that means I need to do it, because it's my higher self and my spirit guides trying to come in and tell me, you need to go do this now. It's time, because this is a good part of your growth process. Your soul growth right now needs to go experience this.
So just trust your feelings and roll with it, essentially. And of course,
Yeah.
a lot of people are living their lives by the, as you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, their analytical mind, which is like the, your conscious mind, which is far less powerful, has far less resources to work on than your subconscious mind. And if thoughts are the vocabulary of your brain, your conscious mind, and feelings, emotions are the vocabulary of your subconscious, your body, then of course, if we naturally follow our feelings, there will be a natural heightened sense of reward for whatever it is you're doing once you follow the things you feel like you need to be doing, rather than listening to the inner talk telling you what you think you should be doing, which may not be the right vibrational match. If you Google spiritual awakening, there is a lot of really scary shit out there. And the one thing that always pops up is the dark night of the void, and which I'm sure you've probably been asked many, many times. Why is it a lot of people seem to struggle for a couple of years during this process? Because I feel like it's important to understand what's happening with some of these people, because I have a lot of friends who have tried getting into meditation and tried going down this path, and they've hit the old search engines and they've gone, oh, this doesn't sound good, because they're coming along. A lot of people who are hitting these existential crises and really having a difficult time. How do you summarize that process, and how do people either avoid it or go through it, a little bit better?
Well, I see that part of it as being kind of a fight with yourself. It's like, like part of you is aware. It's a different consciousness level where you're aware of it, that you need to be going in a certain direction. But then the other part of you, the ego part, and other pieces of you are fighting it and like trying to stop it from happening. So that's why you're having that sensation of what you would call more of the dark night of the soul, or the darkness, or shedding the darkness, or whatever, because you're trying to really go somewhere and you keep holding yourself. You're literally holding yourself in place by going backwards. It's almost like if you were to go and live your life backwards, it's like you keep backtracking instead of going forward. And it's like you take a couple of steps forward, then you take 10 steps back, and you keep doing that. Because it's such a different frequency. I think what's happening is people aren't just changing a little bit, they're changing a lot. And it's such a big leap that it is coming across as scary to them and very unusual, and oh my gosh, what is this world, what is going on here? And so that's why they're backing up, because it is being a little bit afraid of something new. We're all sometimes afraid of things that are different, so that's part of what's happening. And I think also one thing to remember is we're not just dealing with this world, we're also shedding things and being awakened to things that are part of other existences. So if we look at ourselves as, say, future and past lives and other things that we've experienced, we may be tapping into that. And so part of that shedding and that going into that place where we're not sure, we're kind of like, ooh, I don't know if I want to do that yet, is because we're still dealing with things that are trying to heal from another place that we didn't heal. Maybe we had a life where we had a lot of trauma, or there was something unresolved. Maybe our life ended too soon and we didn't get to do a certain thing. And maybe in this life, we're supposed to do it and finish it, right? And that's why it keeps coming up. But we're still not sure, because see, in that past life, something bad happened. So if we step forward into it, is that going to happen again? Your soul kind of remembers these things. And to get into the right vibration in your path, we have to work through that. Because if we were on the other side, let's say we were, in the spiritual realm and we're hanging out over there, it's easy. We just know everything and we do what's right for us. But here we're in the physical plane. So we tend to get into our minds too much and interpret things to where we don't allow ourselves to make those transitions easier. I think a lot of it is just too much mind activity, too much expectations in the world. And I should be doing this process a certain way or a certain speed or whatever it is.
And I feel learning information like this about your existence is some heavy stuff to take on. I mean, look, I'm going through a process too, and this is like, it's mind blowing for me to listen to. I want it to be right. I want it to be true, 100%. And I absolutely believe everything that you're saying. Of course, I see your experience. However, I do think there are a lot of people, super close-minded. Their experiences have made them these very skeptical people. So then when you go and experience some of these things for yourself, and the lessons just come thick and fast, whether through trauma or whatever, for some of these people, it's a mind-blowing, reality shattering process, which can lead to some real difficult challenges for people. would you suggest people find help for things like this if they're going through a difficult awakening?
Well, I think it's good to have a support group, people that are around you that can help you, like if they're going through similar things, or maybe if you have somebody that you trust that you can talk to about it. It could be a therapist, but it can also be like some kind of spiritual counselor or practitioner or something, somebody that you feel drawn to. It could be a shaman. It could be anybody that you feel aligns with what your beliefs are more. I think it's important that you find those people. In my process, what happened to me is when I was trying to heal and I was going through that feeling of I'm releasing a lot of emotions and it's really hard, what I found is I started to go out into the spiritual community and just meet with different people and see what they were about a little bit. I didn't force myself into it. I was just kind of like tiptoeing into it. I didn't like go head first right away. I allowed myself to just look at it a little bit. And what I found is it was certain people I was drawn to. So I would be like, oh, that's interesting what they do. I like what they're saying. And I think it's important for us to find mentors and teachers and leaders and people that match with where we're at that moment and what we need, whether it's healing or otherwise. And that will continue to give us that doorway to walk through. It gives us the permission in a way to be okay with it and to see, oh, look, they went through it too. They've had similar experiences. And, you don't know until you do that. Like a lot of times we don't talk to each other about these things. We kind of hide it. Even though people now are talking about it more, I think it's still hidden a lot of times and people don't feel comfortable with it.
Oh, I don't shut up about it now. I remember when I've meditated for a couple of weeks, I started calling all of my friends. I was like, you guys, stop what you're doing. Stop.
You got to find your people is what it is. You have to find your tribe, your people. And for me, I began to go to different meditations and meetings that had a lot to do with the spiritual topics. And when I did that, I met my people. And it was okay. And then it also expanded me into like, oh, what is this other thing that I've never really looked into? And so I began to investigate other things that I thought I wasn't going to do. So it made me feel like I was okay. I think when you're like, if you're a media environment, maybe you don't have that experience where your friends around you or your family is not into it, or they're not open to it for whatever reason. That can happen a lot. Just go out there and find the people that do, because you've got to be yourself. You have to be who you are, whatever that may be. Even if you're just trying to do a certain career, like we talked about, find the people that match with that. So you get that support from whatever you're choosing, because nobody else is going to understand it to the extent, whatever your passion is your passion. And other people are not going to understand that if that's not their passion, if that's not their path. So it's important to have those people. We need people, not only our spiritual guides from the other side, we need our earth guides, people around us that are going to help us get to the next point. And I found that along the way, what would happen is I would meet people that would say like one thing, or they would introduce me to a concept, or, I'd take a class from them, whatever it was. And when they did that, it like really got me to the next major point. It's like it was the link to the next place I needed to go to. And if I wouldn't have done that, I think I would have, maybe hidden from myself a little bit more or been unsure.
I guess a lot of people are trying to fit the world into them instead of trying to fit themselves into the world around them. And that leads to an awful lot of poor feedback, lack of support from people around you. But what if you just went out and found your tribe? For example, I was an extra in a short movie Sunday, and I've never done anything like it before. I've done a little bit of musical theater stuff in university, but I love music. I absolutely love singing. I sing all the time, but it's something I've never really explored. And I've gone up onto this film set on Sunday, and I've had the best day with some of the best people I've ever met. And I've never hung around with people like this before. And now I'm just thinking, these are my type of people. And we were all just expressing ourselves like to the max. There's absolutely egoless. There was no insecurity. There was no, I never had to think, I never had to feel strange about being myself in front of those people, because they were my tribe. They were the type of people that met my vibrational match, and they were the, as you said, the earth people. That sounds really crazy, but they were the earth people that best suited my existence to be spending physical time with. And I meet a lot of people and are very, very close friends who 20 years on still can't break away from the friend group they created when they were 14 years old, and they've grown to be different people, and they've grown to not care about each other's interests, but yet they're fighting constantly to try and fit each other into their lives, when you just need to understand at some point it's acceptable to go, I got to find my own tribe now. I got to find people that match my vibrational frequency, my ambitions, and who are also on the similar path of finding their inner self, and what makes them live a fulfilling life.
Yeah, that's why I do what I do, because I want people to awaken to that more, and like, begin to believe in themselves, but find those support groups and systems and things in your life that will allow it. Because if you try, let's say you try to do everything yourself all the time, and you're going to save the world and create all kinds of things, and you cannot do anything alone. It's just not possible. I mean, everything you look at, you have collaborations, friendships, colleagues everywhere. There's not just one person on the earth. There's a lot of people here. And so we're all trying to make it better for each other, help each other in whatever way. Hey, you're good at that. Can you help me with that? Hey, I need help with this. Can you support me this way? That's why we're here. We're here to create a better earth experience, and better lives for people in the future, and also so we can connect to each other and remember our connections that we have on the other side that we've brought in here. And so we should definitely focus more on allowing ourselves to not be isolated, even though like maybe in this time we feel more like that. There are still ways to be connected, like you get on Zoom, you get on different things, and you start to still feel those connections. And I think it's given us another wake-up point of what is important. What is the thing that's really going to bring me more joy and happiness every day? And when you really think about it, if we look at our lives like, okay, so what if this was the last day of my life? If we can live that way every day and not be afraid to be ourselves, to reach out, connect to others, we're going to be unstoppable. We're going to do all kinds of things.
That's a world I want to live in, for sure. Will that ever happen? Will that ever happen? Pam, please make it happen. Keep doing what you're doing. It sounds like you're doing some amazing stuff. What's the name of your book, by the way?
I haven't released the name yet, but
Okay.
I'll release it later in the year, most likely. But it's about soul energy and how we can basically start to connect to our love within ourselves and let go of things that have been stopping us from doing all these things that we talk about, living our best life, getting more into a spiritual connection with, our higher selves.
I have a question before we go. It's an experience that happened with me, and I've never actually spoke to somebody about it. I've read a lot of stuff, but man, the internet is it's a wild place. You could get told pretty much anything. I was meditating once, and I was doing something called I think it was called it was a meditation called the Blessings of the Energy Centers, and it's a chakra meditation, but it's a long one. It's like an hour, like 54 minutes or something. And I was going through the process, going through the and got to the heart chakra, and then boom, it was just this very, very interesting experience where this the sensation, this energy, kind of like balled up in the base of my spine, and then just started moving upwards, right? But it wasn't like, it didn't feel like, it wasn't like a feeling, or like I wasn't like an imagination. It was just there. I could it felt like I could just reach in and grab it, and it just kept shooting up, and it was this huge, overwhelming energy that went straight up my spine and just out the top of my head. And there was these crazy colors. It was a very interesting experience, a very authentic experience. It was almost like a reminiscent of a psychedelic experience, I'd say. What was that?
What was that? Well, that
Yeah.
was, there's a couple of things I want to mention there. Okay, so what happens a lot of times is if we think about our chakras, you know, if we go all the way from the root chakra up, sometimes people have more blockages in their root chakra, so they have to deal with that first. And so there's a process to how you awaken. Now, what can happen is if somebody has a blockage in their heart chakra or some kind of trauma that's placed in there, if you open that up at some point and when you finally break through it, it can feel like this huge energy surge, because what was happening is the energy below in your lower chakras was blocked all that time and couldn't go all the way through to your crown chakra. So that's why you were feeling it that way. So in a sense, it's kind of like the Kundalini awakening, but it's mainly, the main thing to focus on is it was the energy trying to just move through effortlessly in the normal flow it would be in, rather than it being stuck at times at different places in your chakras. So the heart chakra is a big one that people are trying to heal right now. And so that's why they may go through times when they feel depression, feel certain emotions or whatever come up, because they're trying to process whatever got in there, any kind of things that really created a lot of trauma for them get stuck in the heart chakra.
Wow. Okay. Well, look, it's been incredible having you on. You're clearly extremely knowledgeable about what it is you're doing. And I'm glad you're well. I'm glad you're physically better now. And message me when your book comes out. Message me. I'd love to read your book. And who knows? I'd love to have you on again. And sometimes. So how can people find Pam? Have you got a website? You got social links?
Yeah, I have social media. I have a website, pambarosh.com. And right now I just put a new meditation on there called the Golden Light Activation Meditation. It'll basically take you through the chakras, and it brings in a certain vibration to open up all the chakras and get you into a higher state. So that's something that they can check out. And then I have a free download, an ebook on my website if you go to it, and you can download that, get on my email list, and I'll send you all kinds of tips and spirit messages. And through my social media like Instagram, I also put a lot of messages on there as well.
Awesome. Pam, you're awesome. I'm super grateful for having you on. And yeah, let's speak soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.